Hey there, YouTubers. I'm going to do a video you got from the title that's way different than is my normal. I tend to be a very private person, and first I'm going to say I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychologist, so this is just me throwing it out there to the ether. Being honest, I don't know if I'm doing this for me or doing this for you, or even if I'm going to post it. So if you've watched my videos before, you've probably realized I don't really talk about myself very much because that's just not the kind of person I am. But we're going to see where this takes me. I had some thoughts together, and you know, if you do YouTube videos, sometimes you get thoughts and you're like, ooh, I should jot that down, and I didn't do any of that. So this is just going to be off the top of my head, just a ramble. But I'm going to talk about loss. And this is brought on because it's been a month today that I had to take my best friend, my cat, that I've had for 15 years and 8 months, to the vet and let her go out a little bit more gracefully than I thought. And many of you will say, oh, it's just a cat, but sometimes things build on each other. So first of all, we all have to get used to loss because that's all life becomes about at some point. Life is about loss. Every day you live, you're going to lose something. You're going to lose people that you care about to death. You're going to lose friends because you might have an argument, or somebody gets a new job and you move to another place and you lose contact with people. You're going to lose people that you care about, either through divorce, things like that. So life is about loss. Like most people, I don't think I'm that much different than most people. I've experienced my fair share of loss, and I've never always been good at processing it. I had loss at a young age, and I found for me the best way was to not talk about it. To push it down. And I spent my life, I consider myself a really optimistic person. So I've spent my life working to be optimistic. And if you've watched any of my silly videos that I normally do about RVing and cooking when you're RVing and stuff like that, I tend to be a pretty optimistic person. Nobody in life should ever get that twisted, because I think even for optimistic people, that's not the first thought a lot of times. But because of loss, I have been a person that despises pity and sadness from people, so I tend not to discuss loss with people. I'm not a victim. I don't like to be portrayed as a victim. And I think, trying to get a thought together, I think my luckiest thing in life has been that I, through no accomplishment of my own, just sheer luck, that the losses I've had throughout my life, I didn't make them about me. I've known a lot of people that do. You know, they lose a brother, they lose a parent, they lose whoever, and they make it about them, what they've lost. I've either been fortunate or unfortunate, whichever way it would be described by somebody that's a professional and knows what they're talking about, is my sadness at loss was always for the person that I lost, or in the past another pet that I've lost, because it wasn't about me. When you lose somebody and you make everything, and that's how YouTube is. They should call, I've said this before, they should call it MeTube, because most of YouTube is look at me, look at me, look at me. And in my life, I haven't been that way. I've been more of thinking about others, how they can be. And that's probably why when I do my YouTube videos, I don't talk about me very much. I'm private. I don't like to do that. So let me see if I can make something of this. When I was a young kid, I grew up in New York, in the city, and I had a dog. And I got that dog at the ASPCA, and I can remember it. It was a little puppy, And when I went there, because again, I'm older than I like to admit, and I've had a lifetime of loss, and some of that loss is memory. But the dog was in the back corner of a huge kennel. I stuck my hand inside the kennel, which was a very bad idea. And that little dog came up all the way to the front and licked my hand. Then I spent probably a half an hour there telling the guy, no, not that one, not that one, till he finally got the right dog. And that dog and I were stuck together all the time. I used to have to take trips from New York to Ohio, and the dog would go with me. And then finally I moved to Ohio and took the dog with me, and I didn't want to be there. I wasn't happy there, but I had that dog. And a pet can take the place of a lot of important people in your life. So then I grew up, I graduated high school, and it was time for me to move on. And I couldn't take the dog with me, so my dog stayed with my grandparents. And they would tell me that she had gotten old and she was sick, and that every day she would make that painful climb up our stairs to go lay in my room waiting for me to come home, which when you look back on it, you feel so guilty about that. And then they told me that she had gotten so sick, she was having seizures and all that stuff, that it was time and they had to put her down. And my memory of that was I was so angry at them, like unrealistically angry, because they had to do something that I wasn't prepared to do. And then I would assume also the guilt of not being there. And since then, you know, I've lost other family members, which are always difficult. It's always tough to lose people, but I was always able to put everything in a bucket. My grandmother died a few years ago, and she was 92 when she died, and she had been in a nursing home with Alzheimer's, which is a disgusting and vile thing to witness. I remember I was the one for a long time that had to be her chauffeur if we were having family gatherings and stuff like that. I was the one that would go pick her up from the nursing home. And she was actually my very first trip in this RV that I'm sitting in. I took her up to Michigan to see old friends. But that kind of loss, when she finally passed, where was I? The brutalness of that disease is that on those drives, a lot of times we'd be coming back and she would ask me, who were those people they were with? I was like, well, they were your children, you know? And she would become so emotional because she realized she didn't know what was going on. She realized she was losing her mind. And that's one of the worst parts of that disease. I don't know how I got off on this. But then when her end was coming, I had to go visit her. She needed some toiletries or something, so I had to run her some stuff. And when I saw her, she was unrecognizable to me. She'd lost all kinds of weight. She did not look like herself. I literally walked by her twice and went to the nurse's station looking for her, and they had to tell me where she was. And I got right in her face, you know, I looked in her eyes, and there was nobody there. That was painful. I had to leave. And then her last day, I didn't have the strength to be there for her last moments. And luckily, other members of my family did, so she wasn't alone. But that kind of loss is, you're preparing for it. It's almost like a relief for that person because you know they're suffering so much. Like I said, this is all top of the head. So I'm going to take a quick break right here and then think of some more top of the head kind of stuff, because I think I got off track. Go. All right, so not a lot more thought went into this. It's like 30 seconds later, and I got a little bit off track. Again, I'm trying to talk about coping with loss. and like I said, sometimes things can snowball on top of each other. I have loss that I don't talk about. I have friends for years that there's certain parts that I don't talk about, and I'm not going to talk about here. The other kind of loss you have, I had a career where I moved a lot. I've said in many of my videos, I've lived in many different places. So you lose friends along the way. That's kind of how life goes. It feels like so much gets taken away from you that if you allow yourself to concentrate on that part of loss, you can feel like a victim. You can feel that you don't have any control in your own life. And I've again been fortunate that I've never viewed myself in that way. The one thing I cannot speak of and would offer no advice, I can't imagine the loss of a child that many people have had to go through. I can't, my brain can vaguely fathom what that must feel like, but my reality of not experiencing that cannot even speak to that. The loss I've had, like most people, a lot of people want to go get therapy, and for some people that might be the greatest thing they can do, and for other people they're just not wired that way. So there is no right, there is no wrong, there is no time frame on how anybody deals with loss. There's loss of I was married for about 10 years and divorced, and that loss, even though in my situation it was my decision, it's still painful to have that kind of loss, to feel like you failed at something. The only way that has helped me deal with loss is, again, not making it about me. When you lose somebody you truly care about that means so much to you, I've been able to see it as feeling so bad for that person that passed away. I know lots of people that somebody they really care about and love dies, and a half an hour later they're on Facebook or they're on YouTube and they're sharing all that with people they know or even strangers. I'm not that type of person. I don't know if that's what I'm doing here about losing a cat, which many people would find inconsequential. It's just a cat. But maybe a cat in a way, or a dog or a pet or anything like that, is on the verge of a child, because they count on you for their survival. They count on you for everything. And when it comes to pets, they ask so little in return that it's difficult. I had said for the longest time that I was going to need an intervention with the cat I lost because I didn't think I could do it. Okay, I've taken a couple more seconds to think, not enough, and the GoPro just messed up, so we'll see where we're going. So this loss has been difficult for me. There have been times already where my brain has forgotten she's gone. Something moves and I think and then you have to remind yourself that no. My point goes back to life is about loss. We are all gonna lose something. None of us get out of here alive. So my goal has always been to be an optimistic person, to work to be an optimistic person. And sometimes we're all going to have bumps in there where it's hard to be optimistic. A difference for me now is, as sad and broken at times I've felt about this loss, because I didn't expect it. When I came up here, I can do math, and I knew she was getting older, but she didn't give me any signs. And I went from thinking there was something wrong with her teeth to, like, 8 days later, standing next to her, crying more than I can remember crying. And real men can cry, and real men don't have to eat meat. You can be a vegan. And maybe part of that whole veganism too is caring about animals and not liking to see them suffer. But anyways, I was fortunate that it happened the way it happened, because if I had been at home on my own, I don't know how well I would have coped with trying to get her more time. The hopeful few days after the vet that she could rebound and last a little bit. I couldn't have done it on my own. I couldn't have done it without the help. I couldn't have done the emotional side of it without the help I've gotten. And I will say again, I'm a person who has always turned away from every bit of help offered to me in emotional situations. I make the mistake of sometimes feeling that's weakness. It is not. It is strength to have feelings and to have emotions about things. But it's tough that I haven't wanted to travel in this RV that I like so much, that I haven't been excited about that. But that may pass, you know. Maybe I'm lucky that I have another cat that I have to take care of, that I have to force myself to remember he's diabetic, so he needs his insulin shots and he needs attention. But I don't think I want any more pets, because as I've done the RV thing, I've for many years, not as much right now, I've been more solitary. Lots of friends, lots of interactions with people, but I tend to be a person that keeps people a little bit at a distance. Again, if you're watching this and haven't watched my videos about RVing, you might not get that. If you have watched my videos about RVing, you probably do get that. We're not as deep and as confusing as we tend to think we are. People usually can figure people out pretty easily. But loss brings everything back to reality. Any type of loss. And no pain or suffering. It's not on a graded scale. You know, some people say, oh, it's just an animal, or everybody's pain is everybody's pain. And how you handle that is a very subjective thing. I've had loss and previously that from the outside showing stoicism, it might appear that it wasn't even a painful loss, as opposed to other losses. It's just loss is something we all have to deal with all the time, and we all really suck at it sometimes. We're not very good at it. Okay, again, just a real quick break. I hope never to offend people. I could be a YouTube channel out there. I would be much more popular if I shared more about myself, or if I tried to elicit responses from people. People love to be angry. I don't want to make anybody angry. But a lot of people view loss, and they make it a deal where everything has a purpose. There's a reason for that. And usually, and this is how I developed from an early age, was you're kind of taught that when you lose somebody or something or anything that matters to you, there's a purpose for that there's a lesson to be learned. Personally, I think that's garbage. All right, that was a really bad point for the GoPro to mess up. So I was saying, if I can remember what I was saying, I don't view, when a lot of people will say when you lose someone, and to me, a cat, a pet, a dog, whatever it may be, isn't a thing. It's not an inanimate object, so someone to me includes pets that matter to you. That it's a way for you to be taught a lesson about life and blah, blah, blah. I think that's bullshit. I don't like to swear on here, but I think it's bullshit. Because I'm not a narcissist. So I don't think something else having to die, someone else having to die, is so that I can be taught a lesson, so I can become a fuller, better person. That's nonsensical to me. However, you can take lessons from the loss of someone. And we're all going to suffer far more lessons than we would ever choose or want to. So, yeah. So the idea that some people try to give you to ease the pain, the suffering, the loss, is that it's a bigger picture for you to be taught a lesson for life. Nah, not for me. It's just loss. That's what life is about. Like think I said at the beginning, because I don't remember what I'm saying anymore. Loss is going to be with us as long as we're breathing air. You're going to lose job, you're going to lose status, you're going to lose people, you're going to lose things that matter to you. Sometimes tragically, sometimes just through the course of your life. Things are going to go away. It seems like the older you get, I remember things from my grandmother. I mean, my grandmother lost her parents when she was very young. And, you know, she was well into her 80s and was still traumatized, and her life was affected by those losses she suffered at an early age. And I feel so fortunate that I haven't had to go through that. My pain has been for the people that lost their own lives. You know, I'm not a narcissist. It's not about me. I've known a lot of people that have carried loss so fresh, like they're freshly wounded every morning when they wake up from loss they've had, because they've made that loss about themselves. And a therapist will tell you something that they learned through books, and they're probably far more correct than I am, but sometimes we all got to get over ourselves. Everything's not about you, you know? So you process that loss, hopefully in a way that you can, because you're going to have a life full of loss, if you concentrate on that loss, being happy is going to be very difficult. If from when we're young, we all concentrate on what we don't have and pay far too little attention to what we have to be thankful and grateful of what we do have. And those painful moments may last a short amount of time, or they may last a long period of time. And for me, the loss of the cat being painful, I'm grateful that it was painful, because I know if you're not a pet owner, you don't get it. But that cat gave so much that it's like you owe them the pain when they're not there anymore. When you reach over and like, oh, that cat's supposed to be sleeping above my head and the cat's not here anymore. Gonna take another break. No one, I don't even think therapists, can tell you the proper way to grieve or the proper way to move forward. For many people, you never will truly get over something, but you can move past it. You can move forward, you know. So, I'm going to try to wrap this up. I don't remember what I've said or if I've made a point, or even if I'm going to post this, because again, this is very out of character for me. I am life affects everybody. You use defense mechanisms to move forward in your life. And loss, we all determine our defense mechanisms to implore through loss. For some people, it's pretending stuff didn't happen, not talking about it. For some people, they need to talk about it all the time. I don't know what's healthy. I don't know what's right. I don't think it's a universal thing where there's one right answer for everybody. I don't think a therapist, a good one, will tell you this is how you're supposed to grieve. Here's your steps. I think there are steps written down, so maybe that's not accurate. But life, hopefully it's as long as it can be for everybody, which means the longer it is, the more you're going to lose. As I spoke about my grandmother towards the end when she was still together, she outlived everybody pretty much she knew. All of her contemporaries, she outlived them all. And she felt loss constantly, which we all do. I think the best thing to take from it is try to be kind to other people and other things. Like I said real quick, I think that's kind of why I went vegan. I really like animals. I don't want to eat them. Watch some of these documentaries on how they're treated. They're disgusting. You wouldn't do that to a pet that you loved. How is it okay to treat a pet you love so well and then turn around and eat a hamburger? I don't know. Maybe that's part of a lesson I've learned from loss, where it seems senseless to kill something with no consequence, and usually for most of us with no repercussions and no blood on your hands. You just go to the grocery store. You don't have to think about it. You can have cognitive dissonance about it. Loss sucks. I've suffered it. You've suffered it. You're going to suffer more. I'm going to suffer more. You try to take from it what you can, and you try to move forward. You try to make it so that you can have a great and wonderful day, as I always end my videos with. Because I truly hope that. I hope I get to have a great and wonderful day. And I hope people I know and don't know get to have a great and wonderful day. And for those suffering and trying to cope with loss, that they can find an avenue that works for them in time to have a great and wonderful day. So I don't know, again, the largest portion of me won't want to even post this. Not sure why I did it. I don't know if I did it for selfish reasons for me, just to vent to a camera, or if I thought, well, maybe this will help somebody. I don't know. I don't know my brain process through this. I don't know my thought process. But I hope that I will get back to enjoying traveling in this van. But I am grateful that I did have a support system for this, which you never get to understand or even pick which losses you have are going to be traumatic. Because again, on a scale, it's hard to imagine which ones were going to hit you hard. And that's loss. That's how it works. You never know how you're going to react to it. Hopefully, all of us react with kindness. Sometimes the loss of a person is harder than the loss of a pet. And in some cases, the loss of a pet can be harder than the loss of a person. Because with people, society, there's nothing we can really do other than let them suffer. We give them drugs so they're basically unconscious. But if they're having a difficult end of life, they have to go through that, usually medicated up. With our pets, we have the opportunity to be more caring and make that decision for them. But then also we're thrust into the position of having to make that decision for them, because I didn't want to. It's been a month and I know I did the right thing, but there's a part of me that still questions it. Because, you know, the vet was fantastic. They were wonderful. They were great. And I asked, and they said, we can do anything you want to do. But the vet agreed that, you know, my hope had been, all right, let's pump her through some more steroids and give the cat a few more days. Because death is not something that any of us want for ourselves or for people. Again, animals can be people. Some of the best people I know are covered in fur. But we want every day of life for them. But at what cost? You know? But it wasn't going to make any difference. I wanted more time for her, and maybe part of it was selfish. I was trying really hard not to make it about me. But I think my rational brain knows I did everything right. But my emotional brain, it happened so fast that I wasn't prepared, and I wanted more time for me and for the cat, for Kiki. But I'm grateful that she did not appear to be in tremendous amounts of pain. when I thought to myself, because when I took her in, the plan had been, well, I'm going to get them to put as much steroid into this little cat as it can take and get her a few more days. Maybe she'll eat, because the shot before she ate for a couple days. But then, you know, you realize you're there. She hadn't pooped in 6 days, you know, and was back to, after 2 days, was back to using a syringe to put food in her mouth. But it was still really hard to accept the loss that I was looking at right in front of me. I knew the loss was there, but I wasn't prepared mentally at that point until push came to shove, and I knew it was the right thing to do for my friend. So when you're coping with loss at the moment and afterwards, you're still going to question everything, I think. I mean, that's what I did. I don't know if that's what everybody does. You know, I know some people that if their pet got sick, they just take it out and shoot it and move on. Now, I'm not that way because I like animals, you know. So this was a rambling meandering of me trying to figure out for myself a little bit and maybe sharing something that could be helpful to a couple people. But we live a life of loss from day one to our last day. So I am going to end it. Finally, I'm going to end it. Lots of GoPro problems. Anybody out there, I want to get rid of the GoPros. If anybody has a better idea of an action cam, please let me know. Also, I want to thank the outpouring of kindness from so many people that watch a lot of my videos. I know my channel is what it is. It's, you know, not demand viewing for most people, but I am grateful for the few that do enjoy coming back time and again. I also want to apologize for not using a lapel mic, but at this point with the GoPro, I don't know if it would have done any difference. Or if my rambling brought back some memories of past loss. Hopefully they'll become a point for you, as I'm hoping with me, and I'm confident that you will get to the point where the memories are good. On a very weird side note, I recently found out that most people, like when you close your eyes and somebody says picture your happy place or picture something, or you have a dream and you remember it like it's a video that you actually close your eyes and see a thing. I don't do that. Apparently there's some kind of name for that, but when I close my eyes, I see dark. I don't see any images. So I'm grateful that I do have the videos that someday I'll be able to go back when I'm ready and watch those and get some happiness, hopefully, from them. And maybe that will give me the chance that I hope all of you get to have, because I say it at the end and I mean it, that I hope you have a great and wonderful day. And then I'm going to include a picture of my best friend. I always used to kind of laugh at the term emotional support animal, but I guess that's what Kiki was. But she helped me have many great and wonderful days.